Hey there, it's Tom O. Welcome to the first episode of the newest Tom O Zone podcast. It's called Beyond the Blind, and it's all about waterfowl hunting. I'm joined by Bill Brown, retired regional director for Ducks Unlimited, and by Brad Allen, retired Maine wildlife biologist specializing in waterfowl, the former bird group leader. We're going to talk about proposed upcoming changes to the Maine waterfowl seasons, also the upcoming public hearing, and other issues related to Maine waterfowl hunters. And just wait till Brad gets going on Eiders. It's all coming up.
Quack.
So for the upcoming 2026-27 season, the state of Maine has proposed moving the boundary line for the North Zone and South Zone further north, and they've already asked us about this.
In 2020,
Yep.
the question was posed, would you favor modification to the north-south zone line? 78% were in favor of the line remaining as it is.
Yep.
So in 2025, we don't ask that same question.
Yep.
We now offer options. Would you favor a zone line change? Would you favor a split in the north zone? And what was the third option? Was keep the north zone, south zone line as status quo.
Yeah.
So between 2020 and 2025, we changed the rules a little bit in how we asked the question.
Yeah.
Well, they changed the question, and we can put that up. All right, so let's see. To review, these were the three options to choose from. Moving the north-south zone boundary further north on the western portion to Route 2. Splitting the north zone season into two segments with the first 8 weeks following the traditional season timing, closing for 2 weeks in mid-November, and then opening the last 2 weeks of the season in late November, early December, which that would have been crazy.
Anybody that chose that just doesn't understand the process.
They don't hunt the north zone.
No.
And the third option was keeping the north zone structure status quo. Well, 28%, they go in reverse order. So third place supported moving the north-south zone boundary to Route 2 on the western portion. 31%, finishing second, supported having the two segments in the north zone, having a split in the north zone. And 41% preferred to keep the north zone season structure status quo. So as far as I'm concerned, that one wins.
Yes,
It's
not ranked choice. It's
that's
not
how an election goes. You can't do ranked choice voting without asking the people to rank their choices.
Mm-hmm.
Out of 20,221 email addresses that were sent this survey, 351 folks chose to respond.
Okay, that's not a great sample size, but that's what you got.
But that's what you got.
And when the votes came in, moving the north-south zone line finished third. I'll put up a graph. My question is, how do you decide to go with the third most popular option?
When you combine 1 and 2.
That's like saying if you have an event that usually has steak for the meal, all right, well, this year we're considering changing it. We've got steak, we've got chicken, and we've got fish. Choose one. Let's say steak finishes first, chicken finishes second, fish finishes third. And you go, well, if you add fish and chicken together, there is a majority of people that want to have something other than steak, so we're going to go with fish, the third option. It just seems absurd.
Yes.
We've had this current north-south zone line has been in effect since 1997. If this had some sort of scientific reason behind it, I'd listen. It's purely somebody thought that they'd get more opportunity in a particular area of the state. This year, that would not have happened.
No, it certainly wouldn't. We would have lost those days that would have been in the split
Exactly.
if the area that was in previously North Zone had been moved into the South Zone. We just wouldn't have been able to hunt those days. There were ducks around when we would have had the split. And then when we were back open, everything was frozen up.
You're giving up usable days for potential hunting days. I'd have to have explained to me why. Why the change? What are we going to accomplish? And the next thing I'll have to ask is, if we do this, are we stuck with it for 5 years?
I think we would be before they could make a change. But I also think we, as a state, could lobby the Fish and Wildlife Service and argue that these changes we're making are so insignificant to the big picture. Can I change this, Mr. U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service agent, to a different road that doesn't bring in or change the area hunted very much? I'm beginning to think that the Fish and Wildlife Service might say, "Yeah, go ahead, you can make that change," because it's not going to affect their data as it comes in from hunters a great deal. So I'm not 100% sure we're stuck with it for 5 years if it changes, but if we didn't like it, if our first 2 years we lost 20 days of hunting opportunity, I think we could lobby them for a change back. But, that just begs the question, why bother?
Why?
When the majority is suggesting that they're pretty comfortable with the situation. I look at your graphs there with that 31% in the middle. Those people don't know how the system works, because they are lobbying for a split season in the North. So I'd almost throw out the input from that 31% because they don't know what the F they're talking about. They really don't. I mean, that's just, no, geez. As a past waterfowl manager, I look at that and I just say, where did this come from? This doesn't make any sense. Yeah. Thankfully, not too many people supported it.
Well, you have to remember, when they asked this survey,
Yeah,
we had come off 2 very warm years.
absolutely.
I mean, Yogi Zavishla, he has 1 coat of fur, and he hunted in December and January.
Yeah, absolutely.
The past 2 years.
Yeah.
Not this year. He was done Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Which, to a lot of us that have been around for decades, that was the norm.
Right, yeah. Yeah.
And these abnormally warm falls really sucker hunters into thinking that the future is better if they hunt late, but it's dangerous. And as my friend Bill would point out, you just don't want to gamble those days away because you could likely be gone.
Lost days are lost days. Once you've given those up, you don't get them back. You don't get a mulligan on those.
No.
And if you're trying to be out there in December and January and it's frozen, you just, I would conservatively say you lost 20 days had this split, the zone change had taken effect this year.
Yeah.
You'd have been 20
without
days.
a doubt.
20 days.
Sure.
And I look at that as pretty significant in the picture. And if they're,
it's 33% of your season.
yeah, you just make a change like that, and a few people who are vocal seem to get what they want for a later season. I mean, for the rest of us.
Since 2020, there have been more requests to consider modifying the north-south zone line and moving the northwestern portion further north to allow for duck hunting opportunity when ducks migrating from north arrive in that area that would otherwise be closed to hunting. If that was your purpose, was that part of the state, why did you affect the whole part of the state? Why? I mean, if you're going to move a line, let's zigzag. I don't know what it accomplishes.
Well, the public hearing is coming up. When is that?
March 2nd, 4 p.m. at the Maine IF&W office on Water Street in Augusta.
There was a time those meetings used to be a lot of fun.
They used to be full house.
Yeah.
I've seen them open the rooms up to the Civic Center. We got to.
Oh, when we first started going to the waterfowl hearings, there was guys from all over in there. Yeah. I mean, that was a room full of people at the Augusta Civic Center.
They were August. First, they were August meetings. They used to be August, late August. So the season was right straight ahead of you.
Right.
Now we're in March meetings, and when we had 60-day season, there wasn't much to talk about. I mean, they'd done a good job. They managed it properly. Everything. Everybody was happy. You get a few turnout when you're going to cut the bag limit back on sea ducks. You get those guys with turnout. We haven't had a reduction in season lengths for 25 years.
Yeah.
Our seasons have been 60 days for 2000.
When I think about those waterfowl hearings and the large attendance, they also broke out geographically, though, because you'd have a group from the coast,
Yes.
and you'd have a group from maybe mid Maine that were hunting around that north-south zone line. And with 30-day hunting seasons, it was very difficult to make everybody happy. So you really had to kind of get down and arm wrestle for the season that was best for your hunting style, I guess. And, back then, not everybody won. They didn't get everything perfect. But when season frameworks got more liberal, it was just so much easier to make more people happy.
And that's when you had a separate sea duck season as well.
We did.
You could treat that as a totally separate entity,
Absolutely.
right?
With lots of days of opportunity and generous bag limits.
It was a hard time when you had to manage 30 days. I don't think you ever did you?
No, I really didn't have to make people happy. My predecessors had to fight that battle. We got the world with 60 days and 66 birds. Just made my life so much easier. It was almost a no-brainer. You can make everybody happy. And now we're just kind of tweaking the system, I think, to meet a certain group of hunters' wishes or something. And I'm not a huge fan of that, actually. A small change like that will make 10 people happy, but it'll make 10 people unhappy. And to me, that's not a good way to manage a resource. When it's a wash like that, it's just like...
You're not even managing a resource.
No.
That zone line change is not going to manage any resource.
No,
it's not going to increase or decrease any bag.
No.
It's just placate somebody that asked.
Yeah.
That's not how you manage it.
No, but it's how you get out of a public hearing with your hat.
You did.
So, but they were very colorful meetings too. When you get a bunch of lobster fishermen in there, coming in there to argue for their black duck hunting days, it was always fun.
I remember we were at the Harry Crooker,
Yeah.
I don't know, the auditorium or something. It was named after him in Brunswick at the high school.
Yeah.
It was full.
Yeah.
I thought I had the wrong room.
Yeah.
Then the next 10 years removed, you go back and you're at the IF&W office in the conference room with 6 staff and 4
Staff
of the public.
outnumbers the hunters.
Right.
Yeah.
And not even any falconers anymore. I mean, they used to be their own contingent.
Unfortunately.
They used to hate it if the season went into January because they wanted to get out there.
They were a group of. I know there are no more than 10 falconers in the state of Maine, and 4 of them, 40% of them, would come to the hearing, and they were prepared. They had their data. They had a lot of things, and 98% of the time they left happy.
Yes.
I don't know why, but they did. And, most of it involved not allowing the regular duck seasons to go too late because they wanted to start as soon as possible. Because their season had to terminate on the end of February, so they were managing backwards from
Right, yeah.
from us.
So the sooner it ended for us, the earlier it began for them, and the more days they got. Yeah.
More days of actual safe hunting. Somebody didn't go out and shoot the peregrine falcon.
It'll be interesting to see. I know there's some letters being circulated in opposition of any change. And it's not we're not picking on the department. I'm really not picking on the department. It's just, there's no need to change.
Now is not the time for it. Now is not the time for it.
Just leave it alone. Just leave it alone.
Yeah, with those tenuous survey results and response rates, I don't see a group like Maine Fish and Wildlife digging their heels in. It's not resource driven. It's hunter preference, and I think the department would rather we wrestle it out as waterfowl hunters rather than try to get them to come in and put their influence over the top of us. They're amenable to public input for sure.
There are going to be bigger battles down the road.
Yeah.
They're not very far away.
That could be.
What are you saying? Are you saying we're running out of ducks?
I'm saying we're running out of days here pretty quick, guys.
Yeah.
I'm saying we're going to run out of days. It's in the future.
What are you thinking?
Can see him going. I hate to say it, I could see him going a 50-day season, but I wish they'd find 55 would be a good compromise. Give me 55 and 5.
10 isn't bad. I thought they would go
40.
right to 45. 30, 45, and 60 would be the choices if I was to guess.
I'm not sure the sky's falling, but
I think you're right, Tom. It would be 45.
you think they'd drop that way?
Well,
that's how the feds think. I know
that's
that.
the way they've been framing their decision making for the last 15 years is liberal seasons, restrictive, moderate. And I'm pretty sure the moderate is a 45-day season as a starting point.
I mean, they took us from 4 mallards to 2. That was
a bust.
That was quite a reduction, and whether it resulted in anything, I think, is still to be debated.
I'll say it today, and I'll say it tomorrow. Take my ducks, don't take my days. If you're concerned about bag limit, and you're concerned about overconsumption, take my ducks, don't take my days.
Yeah.
Give me a chance to go out and shoot one. Just give me that opportunity. Not everybody shoots a bag limit every day that they go out.
I don't know anybody. I don't know anybody that does that. I mean, if you get one a year, I mean, besides black ducks here, I mean, you can get 2 black ducks a couple of times a year. But to get 4 mallards, that's a once a season. Nice, we did it, right?
Right, it was epic. We call them epic hunts.
Yeah,
they're memorable for whatever reason, and they're epic hunts. But that they talk about hunter satisfaction. I mean, you went through that at the end of your careers. Everything was the federal goes. Hey, we got to give hunter satisfaction. Opportunity. I'm not sure eliminating days is going to be much opportunity.
Hunter retention is a big buzzword.
Recruitment.
Yeah. Getting new people out there, but retaining the people you have. And with waterfowl, it's, I don't know any data on the background of waterfowl hunters, but a lot of us blink in and out year after year. You answer the survey one year because you hunted, but you might not hunt for 3 more years. And then there's the dyed-in-wool hunters, like we like to think we are, that get out a lot. And to me, that input from those hunters is invaluable.
There are duck hunters, and there are folks that hunt duck.
Yeah.
There's a different species. There's 2 different things there.
Well, and if it gets too confusing, I know a lot of people have said to me that they stopped duck hunting, just because of how the structure is here in Maine, which is not nearly as intricate as it can be in other areas. I mean, we just have our bag limits. We don't have to deal with, you can only be in the woods from this time to that time. You can only have this number of shells. You can't be at the boat launch till this time. We don't have to deal with that.
No. We are very, very lucky.
You're sea duck hunting, and you have to be a half a mile offshore.
Yeah.
Who the hell knows where that is?
Where's that?
Wherever you think it is, I guess.
Right?
Oh, yeah, it's, Maryland, Delaware kind of country for sea ducks. Down there, it's, I guess, where the ducks are. But up here, they're right on shore.
Yeah.
But down at Chesapeake Bay, they might be 10 miles offshore. I certainly wouldn't want to go out and set up for those.
No. I'm not going to take the rectangle boat out there.
No.
Well, I might.
Yes, you would.
I think you might.
You would. I've seen it.
Yeah. It's possible.
Yeah.
Depends how the conditions were at the launch. They'll be totally different later.
Oh, for another day.
Right, that's for our feature. I shouldn't be alive.
Yeah. And I won't do that again.
Our new feature. I won't do that again. Right.
Because it doesn't bode that well when you invite others to go with you.
Oh, I know. It never goes well.
Why, it took me 10 years to finally integrate with you guys. I told you where to hunt, but I just didn't join you for 10 years.
It was probably a good choice.
I thought so.
Yeah, you knew how it was going to go.
I didn't want to die.
No. I've only smacked you in the head with a paddle once.
Yeah, that almost knocked me out.
But other than that, I haven't tried to drown you.
No, I don't worry about that. I just don't want to get shot.
Well, yeah. I don't think I've ever had a barrel pointed in your direction, so that should be all right.
I know you haven't.
No.
Nor have any of our colleagues that I hunt with.
All right, so just to get back to our original subject, the public hearing for the Maine waterfowl season is coming up on Tuesday, March 2nd, 4 p.m. at the IF&W building. And you can also submit comment online afterwards, right?
That, I think, is open until the 12th of March. I think you can submit written comment to Becky Orff.
10 days after the hearing.
So I think it's still the 12th of March this year.
And now that the hearings are in the wintertime, there is more influence really on the decisions that are made, right? I mean, when it used to be in August, waiting for the federal framework, and we got to start goose season in like 2 weeks, there was no time for any changes. The state decision was already made, right, on what was going to happen in the season. And in theory, now that it's earlier in the year, there is some time for adjustments to be made before decisions are made.
I guess and Brad will speak to this, but I guess the philosophy here was how we gather our data to make a determination. We're not relying on data that's retrieved from now until August. We're now, it's actually last year's data.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
last year's data.
Right, yeah.
They've run all the computer models and found out managing a year out is responsible. And the resource won't go to hell if we do that. So that took a little pressure off the timing. Because when, in the old days, everything was happening really fast in the summer. You're just getting the breeding ground data in. You're just getting this and analyzing that. And you got to advertise your season before the Canada goose season opens up on September 1st. It was a time crunch that made for a little bit of craziness. Now it's like you were just saying, Tom, it's spread out and we get more time to make the decision, it feels like.
So it's important to be a part of the process.
Well,
think
if you're a waterfowler,
I think it works.
if you're a waterfowler,
Yeah.
you need to understand the process. I mean, the state of Maine does not necessarily manage the way perhaps they'd like. They're somewhat hamstrung.
Sure, federal framework.
Federal framework is established, and they have to live within that.
You cannot shoot more than 2 black ducks. You cannot shoot more than 2 or 3 geese during regular season, depending upon your zone here in the state of Maine. But you're not going to be able to kill 8, 10
You may
geese
be more,
in the regular season like you can in the early season. People are like, why? Why not? There's more geese here in the regular season. Well, it's different geese, right?
It is. It's totally different. You want to talk about managing Canada geese. I don't think there's a resource out there that's more heavily researched on the timing of the status of their population, the timing of the migration, where they go. It's impressive. And I was first seen that when I think it was 1995-ish when they closed Canada goose hunting in Chesapeake Bay. And, the status of geese from Ungava Bay was horrible that year. They had a big snowstorm. They had no production. And so they had a count of 30,000 Canada geese that would all migrate to Chesapeake Bay that would be hunted very hard by a lot of guides. And they knew so much about that population, they could manage it appropriately. They had to really suck it up and not kill geese in Chesapeake Bay for a couple of years. But when that population came back with a couple of good years of reproduction, they opened the season, liberalized it. And, I was just amazed that we have that much data to manage a resource that well. But the old guides didn't like that, of course. There's how it affected me, and how could you know? And I'm impressed with the body of information that U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service collects, and in this case, working with Canada to make responsible hunting seasons. It's complex. You're trying to manage a waterfowl resource that uses 3 countries, and hunters in different countries have different wants about the hunting season, and yet it all kind of works, and the resource seems to be in pretty good shape. We wouldn't have been in 60-day hunting seasons for the last 30 years if something wasn't working.
And you're blindsided by avian influenza and weather. Impactful spring weather can just, you need the water, but you don't need the 2 feet of snow.
Yeah.
1 goose in Delaware, Maryland this year. Anybody up here like that? 1 goose limit?
No, it'll be tough.
And
you're going to hear from the guides. The waterfowl biologist in Maryland went to those public hearings like we're talking about with armed guards. Because there were death threats on them. And, when the rumor came out that they were going to close the season, there was a lot of people impacted by that decision. But, it was based on a body of science that I had no idea existed. We've had neck collars on geese. We've had radio collars on geese. And they really know how those birds move about from Newfoundland to Long Island Sound, wherever they winter. And I wish we had that much information for ducks, but geese are pretty effectively managed in my mind. But
how do you bring it to the next level for ducks?
Well, they are trying with very specific radio telemetry projects on hen mallards and hen black ducks. That season, when the season went from 4 to 2, that was, I think, a lot. But I wasn't paying attention at this meeting. I should have been more awake. But
you were on your way out. You were on your way.
That's
out.
Right.
It was just swan.
He had
song.
Retirement already.
You'd already left the building.
Right,
I was more interested in when the Danishes were going to be served. But, but a lot of it was based on the breeding ground survey from Pennsylvania that comes up through New England and does not include Maine. We're included with the Maritimes, but their breeding ground data indicated that the mallard population had basically crashed. And of course, as somebody that lives in Maine 24/7, you're not going to see any of that. And so they reacted to that data very quickly. And some of us would say that's a little suspect. You might be a little overreaching with that. And then 2 years later, it came back to the way it was. So I think even the resource managers realized they might have jumped the gun on that one a little bit. But I can tell you the biologists that live in those states said it was certainly necessary. The numbers were down. So you cut the season or the bag limit in that case. And that was pretty drastic. That caught a lot of us off guard. And it had nothing to do with Maine.
Yeah.
It wasn't our ducks.
You're part of the flyway.
Yeah. You do. You have to
live and die by that same sword.
Yeah, but how else to manage a resource of this international importance? Thing that always comes back to me with this stuff, and I don't know why I'm hung up on this, but I read somewhere, don't believe everything you read, but I read somewhere that 90% of the ducks in North America come out of Canada, and 90% of the harvest is in the United States. So Canadians are producing a lot of ducks and sending them our way, but they don't have the numbers, the hunter numbers that we do in the States to make a difference when it comes to the harvest. They shoot early, and the birds are gone, of course. But most of the ducks get to the United States, and we're shooting them one way or another over the course of the fall and early winter. And, with that in mind, we certainly need to make sure we have Canadians at the table, I think, when we make these kind of decisions, because they're their ducks, and that's where they're coming from. And
well, the North American Waterfowl Treaty was certainly, I mean, if you want an eye-opener, look at that.
Yeah.
Look at the
Migratory Bird Treaty.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, those are laws to protect migratory birds that have worked for 125 years. So, we fiddle around the edges with a hunting day here, a hunting day there, a zone line here, a zone line there, but it's a complex system that's managed the best we can, and as long as these birds don't go extinct, we're doing a pretty good job. And I was surprised on the radio the other day, or a podcast that indicated that the breeding ground survey has been way down the last couple of springs, and I haven't paid attention to that. I'd be surprised if those numbers were alarmingly low, but this hunter certainly indicated that they were way down. I used to look at it just for, teal seemed to do well this year. They saw a lot more than they usually do. We can expect a good teal season maybe, but I think they do a pretty good job with the information they have.
Now, you've done wings this year. You had to send
Seems
in
like
your...
I've done wings half of my adult life.
I was going to say, you did wings again this year. And once they find somebody who's willing to send them wings, it seems like they ask you to keep sending them wings. What's the deal with that? How does that work?
They use the wings to apportion the harvest by species, because they're more interested, I think, in the big picture. They're more interested in the total duck harvest. So they get the total duck harvest for the United States or the Atlantic flyway of 500,000 birds. Well, it's at 500,000 mallards, it's 500,000 blacks, 500,000 this or that. So they use the wings to apportion that total harvest by species, and they do their data and their surveys and the information that you have to send in when you send in the wings, so that they can say, well, we did kill 500,000 birds, and based on our wing collection subsample, 32% of them were mallards and 28% of them were wood ducks and things like that. So they use that to help generate harvest data by species.
How does that differ from band recovery?
Yeah. Band recovery studies are different. There's a lot of reason to band birds, and I banded eider ducks in Maine to understand the harvest rate. I guess I wasn't concerned how many of those were females, how many were males, or this or that. We were looking to see if the harvest rate of the birds we banded alarmed us that we were shooting too many. And the example I think in my mind all the time is I might go to an island and band 100 birds. They're all hens in this case. So they're 100 birds into the system for the upcoming season. And I hear back from two hunters said they killed an eider duck with a band on it and wanted to know where it came from. And, so we use that to improve our harvest rate data and we know with sea ducks that a harvest rate of 2% is very allowable from a hunting standpoint. So the first message to me is, okay, we're not over harvesting these things. So even though the numbers appear to be down, it doesn't appear to be caused by the gun. And, so that when we set the next year's hunting season, we have that information in the back pocket. So, banding information is kind of more harvest rate kind of information. Another good example I could think of, we banded a lot of wood ducks. When we changed the banding, the daily bag limit on wood ducks from 2 to 3, a lot of people question the wisdom of that. And so we did a lot of banding prior to that move, and then during the actual hunt, the subsequent 2 or 3 years, with band recovery information, they could find out where the birds came from, obviously, in the harvest, and they also determined what the harvest rate was. They had already estimated an allowable harvest, and then they had the band data to tell them what the harvest rate was, and so we could be comfortable that we were living within allowable harvest estimates for these populations, and we continue status quo on wood duck bag limits at that point. So, but Bill and I have talked about this. The data show that the harvest rate on wood ducks is right at the edge of what we think is allowable. And so we got to be careful. When you're managing around the edge of a population, it might be easy to overharvest them. So we don't want that to happen.
And it's different for you being in the northern part of the flyway, where we're not killing the majority of wood ducks. Most of them are killed in the southern portion of the Atlantic flyway. And
so it was important to waterfowl biologists in the Northeast to know if the southern hunters were overshooting our birds. We're very possessive about that. We don't want that happening.
Right.
We do. Yeah, we
raise a few, we'll let you shoot a few, but when you don't raise any.
It's only because they're so tasty and cool looking. That's it. If they weren't so tasty and cool looking, we wouldn't care.
Yeah. But, that's, a bag limit of 3 a day to 2 a day to 3 a day. I don't know when the wood duck limit was established at 2 a day, but it was probably decades ago. So to ratchet that to 3 to make hunters more happy with a more liberal bag limit took a lot of work. And in order to make that step, they super analyzed the data to make sure that things are allowable. And, as much as I don't deal with those kind of data sets, it seems to be working okay. We're still seeing wood ducks here in the fall, thankfully.
Tons of them. Yeah. If it wasn't for them, we wouldn't have anything to do in September, October.
I think they've teetered on that edge for several years now. I would not at all be surprised to
see that change.
See that too again. I just think that how long are you going to let it sit on the edge? Yeah.
Well, speaking of dropping bag limits, it might be time to talk about Eiders. You guys spent a lot of time out there back in the day.
November, December, January. Went in on Halloween weekend, whenever that fell, and we were out there at the end of January, whenever the sea duck season ended. Yeah, we rented that three months in Stonington.
You were committed.
We were committed. We had a lot of commitments. I had a lot of commitments professionally, and then I had partners involved with that had other commitments business commitments. We hosted a lot of hunts, but you couldn't do it anywhere else. I mean, it wasn't, if you were from Massachusetts, maybe. Well, if you're from Indiana, you weren't on the ocean very much. You wanted to come to Maine.
Well, this was the place to be, especially for those big black and white ducks.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, it was incredible. It was just incredible. I look at that photo up there. Oh, God.
I remember one season, I don't know when it was, probably 20 years ago, when we were starting to try to ratchet down the sea duck bag limit from 7 to 5 or 4 or whatever people were okay with. It was just, I was sending a message to hunters and guides that the future you might see a little more restriction. And I had a waterfowl biologist from South Carolina was in town. He's a good friend of mine, so I went along on his hunt, and I'd been whining about sea duck numbers for 2 or 3 days ahead of time with him and showed pictures of it and all. And I asked the guide who was in charge, where are we going hunting tomorrow? And he said, no name Ledge. And he says, if there aren't 1,000 birds over that island tomorrow, I'll eat my hat. And I thought, wow, that's a bold thing to say this time of year from a guided hunter. But, he's a guide. They say all kinds of funny things. And we went out there the next morning, and I have never seen so many sea ducks come over the decoys. They were coming in lines of 20 or 25 at a time coming at our rig. And what they were doing is they were pivoting on our island to go up into a bay where they'd been feeding. Thousands of them had been feeding every day. So that's where they were headed. And I remember sitting on that island and seeing a line of 25, and 100 yards behind that, a line of 25, and 100 yards behind that, a line of 25 or 50, just coming at us at dawn. and that we were just covered up in sea ducks that day. And that guy knew what he was doing, and it was a show, and that was the last show that I can remember. But those were the good old days.
We were a little different in that we hosted a lot of photographers and story writers, a lot of non-gun toters, and it was incredible the photographic opportunity that was provided those folks and the stories that were written. You know, it's not always about the gun. Now it'd be a good thing that it isn't, but we had some wonderful photographs that were taken that have been shared with us through the years that, you know, keeps the memory alive, because I didn't take enough pictures. I would have, had I known about video, I'd have taken much more video of the Eider trains.
Yeah.
When there were thousands and thousands of ducks in the air, I wish I'd have taken video of that.
Yeah, we ran out of food.
Yeah.
You know, I hope it
ran
comes
out of
back.
reasons for being here.
Yeah.
You know.
I'd love to see it come back. Hopefully, we're physically able enough to do it. It's not an old man sport either.
But what we were trying to show them too was a complete package of a Maine sea duck hunt. It wasn't just about killing large numbers of big black and white male eiders. It was about the lobster boat going by. It was about the islands we were sitting on. It was about the history of Stonington with granite carving, and sea duck hunting turned from a let's go shoot a lot day, get rid of all our ammunition, to trying to be a real trophy hunt and a real sea duck experience. I think that's what our guides in Maine have done, is tried to sell that experience, and it's a good one.
Oh, I hope it comes back. I'd try it again. I wouldn't do 3 months. Used to sit up at night, listen to the windows rattle with the wind and say, what are we going to do tomorrow? And these people, I mean, I've had people fly from Hawaii to do this. I hate to disappoint anybody, you know, but man, you can only do so much. You know? We should have given up 4 or 5 years earlier, probably. In all honesty, now looking back at it, you know, they'll be back. They'll be back.
Well, they're not dead. I mean,
No,
they're just elsewhere,
it's
so
all
you
about
can
distribution.
possibly entice them back if you have the right things that they are looking for, right?
You know, if a mussel bed in Casco Bay over by Yarmouth or something decides to proliferate, and you get 1,000 eiders finding it next fall, and they live on it for a whole month, you can have some good hunts back there. It could come back fairly well if you can find big patches of their food. Keeps them there. Around a mussel farm.
Got to get the girls here to nest, and then you got to get the boys to come back to find them.
Yeah, there's a lot of natural things going on out there too. There's a lot of predation on the islands. It's mink and otter, bald eagles, hunters, a lot of things that will kill a sea duck if given the opportunity.
Seagulls.
Yeah, they'll eat all the ducklings they can possibly suck down.
It's a rough life to be a duck.
Yeah, it is indeed. Especially a species like sea ducks that try to flood the environment with as many young as they possibly can, and just hope that 1 or 2 of them make it. It's
And they don't do it till what, they're 5 or something?
3.
3?
Yeah, when they first nest.
First nest?
Yeah. Well, they're an amazing species. I could talk all day on them, but we're lucky to have them. We're lucky to have 300 plus islands where they nest in Maine at the southern edge of their limit. And if you want to appreciate eider ducks, go to Iceland, where they revere the eider duck, and they quit killing them in 1857, I think it was, because they were harvesting the down as much as they could possibly do on that island. They decided that, well, if down is king, then we can't kill the source. So they made it illegal to hunt eiders, a long time ago in Iceland. And anything that killed an eider duck, like a Arctic fox or a seagull or something, that you could also kill. And they were all they were all into that. And to go to Iceland, I went 7 or 8 years ago. Every small harbor you go to, which is absolutely photographic, beautiful places. They're all gorgeous. They all kind of look alike, fishing villages, but there's eiders in the water everywhere around the whole island. It's really cool.
So to get the down, where do they get it? They don't have to kill the duck. Do they get it out of the nest?
No, they do. They, usually, a private individual would own an island, small island right offshore that, say, 200 eider ducks nested on it. And they would build little rock houses for the ducks, put a piece of plywood over the top to let the ducks nest in them. And so if you owned a eider farm, they call them, and there's 600 or 700 in Iceland, you were considered very lucky, and you were likely to be very, very rich from it. The eider comes in, she builds a nest, she starts laying her eggs, and halfway through incubation, which is about 2 weeks after she started, the farmer would go to the nest and take half the down out, and the hen eider often, it was such an animal husbandry situation, the hen eider would often not even leave, and so he harvests half the down and goes away, and then the eider replaces that down with more off her breast, and the ducklings hatch, they go away, the hunter goes, and he collects the entire nest now. He's got a nest and a half of down from that one hen. But if you've got 200 or 500 hens, you've got a barn full of down that you have to clean and sell at a very high rate. And eider farming in Iceland is amazing. And one way to take care of one of your resources is kill everything that eats them.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
I had no idea.
Yeah, it's, a down coat or a comforter costs $1,000 or $5,000. I don't know what it is, but the down industry in Iceland is just incredible, and it's all because of the common eider duck.
And they're not taking it off dead ducks.
No, not at all. Nobody kills them.
The eiders are picking it for them.
Yeah, they just pluck it off their breast.
That's cool.
Nature's best insulator. They've found nothing that insulates better than eider down. But farming, handling the down after you've visited all your nests it's very laborsome process to clean it, to get all the raspberry sticks and twigs.
Sure, vegetation and all that stuff, right?
The whole industry, and but the demand for the product is still skyrocketing. Kind of cool. We've been asked in Maine, people would read eider farming in Iceland and they connect the dots. Well, why can't I go to a Maine island and collect eiders down? Well, we don't want you out on the island stumbling around, scaring all these birds when they're within a week of hatching. And the problem on a Maine island is if there's 200 eider ducks, there's probably 100 great black-backed gulls there too, and as soon as you scare the eider off her nest and try to take half her down, a gull comes in and eats the eggs, boom, and so that's not going to be very good for your eider resource long term. It's just too much disturbance. It's too different. It's not the same situation as Iceland, but people called us, I want a permit to collect eider down. We deny it every year. It's just not going to happen.
We chase them off their nest to band them, then put them back in there.
We do, and
they're pretty.
We're concerned about that too.
They're pretty gaunt. I mean, they're not the healthiest of birds when they're sitting on their nest for extended periods of time.
No, they have to max out and get as fast as they can. The eggs themselves are big, and there's a lot of material in them, and a hen eider likely will sit on that nest for 26 days, theoretically, without leaving the nest. You're nesting next to a gull. You don't want to leave the nest because then the herring gull walks over and eats an egg. So you stay there, and they stay there for days and days and days. And at the very end of it, when they hatch, they are very, very weak, and they stumble down to the ocean and try to defend their ducklings in the water now against gulls. And they're weak, but they can recover, and they will recover. But The gull nesting next to the eiders is always kind of interesting. You say, well, why don't you just kill the gull? But the gull nesting on her eggs is keeping other gulls and crows and ravens away from the hen eider. So that gull gives a little umbrella of protection because they're territorial and they don't want all these other predators around. So the hen eider kind of, as long as I sit here on my eggs and behave myself, I'll be fine. And that silly gull over there and that silly gull over there and that silly gull over there will protect me from ravens, say. And it works. The system works. You go on the island, scare the eiders, scare the gulls, everybody flying around. That does impact everything. So we're very sensitive to that with our surveys and our work. And we try to minimize that as much as possible.
But you have to do it. I mean, you have to get them off the nest so you can ban them. I mean, we net them before they get to the water.
Unless you've figured out a different way to ban them. And we've done that, too, with floating nets off the island. So, I don't know. It's all fun.
It was fun.
Banding ducks was fun.
Oh, I thought it was great. I mean, it's not easy. Banding ducks is better than banding geese because geese are just, they're bastards.
Nasty.
They just want to scratch your forearms, and they're not happy at all.
No, I got scars on my arms from Canada goose claws.
You have to remember which way to put them between your legs so the feet go that way as opposed to coming back at you. And you're checking they don't like when you check the cloaca either.
I wouldn't either.
Cloaca.
Check the cloaca.
Yeah, we created that issue too by going to Connecticut and bringing back all their golf course geese and putting them in ponds in northern Maine and everywhere. We wanted to put them in remote ponds as much as possible, and now we have probably a overabundant resident Canada goose population. But I used to truck them back in July, crates full of geese from Connecticut. I remember once going through the toll booth in York. When I hit the clutch wrong or something, the truck jerked at the toll booth and all the geese in the back started honking. The toll booth person saying, "What are you doing?" I said, "They don't fly north anymore. We got to drive them north." And she's like, "Really?" So that was fun. Even, the resident goose population, our goal was to establish a goose hunt for Maine waterfowl hunters, and we did. And, a lot of people, somebody asked me near the end of my career, when you guys brought turkeys and Canada geese into Maine, did you ever think about an overabundant population? We're always like, we want to lay them on the ground. We want them here. We want them there. We want them in northern Maine. We want them everywhere.
Right.
And I thought, he's right. We never did think about that. So hopefully we could try to handle that overabundance with a hunting season.
He didn't know how much they were going to love it. It's like mass holes.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden they take over. Right?
Just don't let Brad take you on an Eider banding expo on the poison ivy protected islands.
I've taken a lot of people out there.
Yeah. Well,
I've been to the
you usually get them there once.
Yeah. Right. I got Commissioner Judy Camuso covered with poison ivy. She wanted to go, and I said, "Hey, Judy, I know you're sensitive to poison ivy, and this island's 26 acres of poison ivy." She said, "I want to see what you're doing." Yeah. She sucked it up and went. About 3 weeks later or 2 weeks later, I was at a meeting with her, and I saw her lift up her pant leg, and her calf was just as red as it could be with poison ivy.
We always wore the hazmat suits out there. We wore the hazmat suits.
That was before hazmat.
Then we would wash off. You guys had the solution to wash your hands, the Fels Naphtha or whatever.
That wasn't to protect you, it was to protect the ducks.
Yeah.
Looked like some sort of catastrophe, some sort of environmental catastrophe or something, nuclear.
My biggest professional challenge around that was all the banding was hen eiders on islands. And so we had, over 20 years, we had thousands of hen eiders banded. And we know people prefer to shoot males. So if you're worried about survival rates, and certainly how hunting might influence your banded population, we only had half the population banded, so we had to figure out a way to get males, and we did. by catching them when they were molting in August with these incredibly well orchestrated drives where we'd push eiders onto a half-tide ledge between two islands into a corral that we built as the tide was going out. And we'd push these flightless eider ducks very slowly around the island to the wings of where our trap was, and then we'd push them to the ledge, and they were thinking they could run over it probably to the other side, but there was a net in a fenced-in area in between, so we were catching them. I think we caught 800 one time at one capture, but essentially that emulates what people used to do in the 1700s in Maine when they were hungry in the summer, and they would push ducks into coves like Duck Trap Stream up in Lincolnville and Duck Cove out on Isle of Ho. Those are famous spots for pushing flightless eider ducks into those coves, and then they'd fence them off with nets, and they'd send the kids in to kill all the birds and whatnot. So our banding evolved from a process that was used 300 years ago to catch them and kill them, and we were just catching them and banding them and letting them go. But my goal was to get as many male eider ducks banded as possible, so that when hunters started returning the bands, we'd get a sense on the harvest rate of that part of the population, and we did. So that was fun. That was a lot of work. It was 10 or 12 people at a time, several boats, logistics on camping on offshore islands. But we did it as long as the Eiders showed up at this spot in August, and they would by the thousands. And then one year they quit coming. We were like, shit, what's up with that? Don't change your plans for August, because we got no birds to work with. They're still not there. So
that was it. That was the last time.
That was it. They were done. The mussels went away. The Eiders from wherever they came from, and they came from everywhere. They came from Quebec and Nova Scotia and New Brunswick to molt there. They just don't come there anymore. They go somewhere else. As far as I know, it's off Anacostia Island. I don't know, but they're somewhere.
So not coming down as far. Not necessarily going past us. They're just stopping short.
Yeah, in that case. I've never heard of big molting areas south of us. That's a good question. Yeah. They're more toward the north and closer to their nesting areas, because a lot of those molting males that I was looking to catch had females with ducklings with them too. So the whole clan was there. So, but a good part from a hunting standpoint, hunters sometimes were told don't report their bands 100%, and we want as many bands reported as possible. But with eider ducks, there are so few male eiders ever banded, period. The reporting rate from hunters, they were real curious where their duck came from, was probably very, very good. So we're getting very good data on the harvest of these birds that we handled and banded. It was a good study. A lot of fun, about 10 years long.
Report your bands. Turn in your wings.
Yeah,
do the
exactly.
DNA if you can.
That data helps.
And nobody's using it against you. I don't know why that ever got out there that they were using it against us.
That was kind of I could see a hunter thinking, if I start telling the big brother U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service I'm killing all these ducks, he may shorten the season because I'm killing too many. But in fact, we need data to make decisions about hunting seasons, and if we don't have the data, we don't know, then we're likely not to make a change, especially to liberalize a hunting season with no data. So if you're not reporting your bands, we don't know what's going on. We're more likely to be conservative with our harvest management because we don't know. And when you have data, a lot of data, like in the case of the wood duck we were talking about earlier, you can change a bag limit from 2 to 3 because you've banded a shitload of birds and you've got good data on them. So more data makes more opportunities for hunters in that case, because a lack of data, the tendency is to be conservative with your harvest management. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, when you don't know, you're going to be conservative.
Yeah.
There's no question.
So if nobody's turning in their bands, we don't know.
There's no reason not to. Turn them in. Do your wings. If you're asked to do the wing survey, do it.
Banded
it's not
Eiders,
that
we learned that the oldest one banded and killed was 23 years old.
Is that right?
Yeah, that one came from New Brunswick. I had the record at 22 for a while, but a study up in New Brunswick that DU helped on and all revealed a legitimate band recovery. It was 23 years old. Banding's fun. That's why waterfowl biologists and waterfowl biologists, they like to get their hands on ducks. At least that's the way I was. And if I had a waterfowl program that didn't allow me to get out and band ducks, if I was just sitting in front of my computer doing population models, I wouldn't last very long. I needed to be out in the field, and that's why I did it. I think that helps state agencies like Maine Fish and Wildlife to understand what's going on. If they walk a mile in a duck hunter's boots every now and then, we're seeing less and less of that in government people that make hunting season recommendations that don't hunt.
Right. You want biologists that are also hunters, right?
I think it
I mean,
helps.
ideally,
I
right?
think ideally.
Or at least own a pair of hip boots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Aren't afraid to get a little duck shit on them. And then eat your sandwich.
Quack.